Who are a free people? That's the timeless question asked by the penman of the American Revolution, John Dickinson. His answer might surprise you. It's definitely not a system where you happen to find good people to be rulers and do good things like respect the Constitution and liberty. That's just pure luck, a population on its knees begging for scraps. So on this episode, it's what a real land of the free is all about. Plus, the fatal trap politicians have always used to guarantee tyranny. It all comes from Dickinson's 1767 Letters from a Farmer in Pennsylvania, the most widely read documents on American liberty prior to 1776, and the foundation of the American Revolution. But first of all, before getting to that, welcome, and thank you for joining me here on the path to liberty. My name is Michael Bolden with the 10th Amendment Center, and this is the show for Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025. Let's kick it off with the threat. A big reason so many people are confused about freedom, confused about the limits of power under the Constitution. Well, first of all, you have government-run schools, but you also have politicians who have mastered the art of making tyranny look legal. Dickinson wrote, "All artful rulers who strive to extend their power beyond its just limits endeavor to give their attempts as much semblance of legality as possible." And citing the Roman historian Tacitus, Dickinson reminded us that every time you allow them to get away with it, it sets the stage for more and more of the same. He said, "Those who succeed them may venture to go a little further, for each new encroachment will be strengthened by a former. That which is now supported by examples growing old will become an example itself, and thus support fresh usurpations. So one leads to another and another and another." Now, Dickinson was certainly a student of history. He understood that if you trust these people and their claims about legality of government power, well, you're just going to end up in chains. He wrote, "Indeed, we ought firmly to believe what is an undoubted truth confirmed by the unhappy experience of many states heretofore free, that unless the most watchful attention be exerted, a new servitude may be slipped upon us under the sanction of usual and respectable terms." And here's how the trap works. Tolerate one abuse, and you've pretty much already lost, because they're coming back for more and more and more. He wrote, "When an act injurious to freedom has once been done, and the people bear it, the repetition of it is more likely to meet with submission." And we understand this through human nature and simple psychology. This has worked all through history. The people basically just rationalize what's going on and hope for the best. He said, "For as the mischief of the one was found to be tolerable, they will hope that of the second will prove so too. And they will not regard the infamy of the last, because they are stained with that of the first." And it's not like politicians aren't aware of this. They know exactly what they're doing, and they often start with really small steps, really small precedents, so that people don't think it's very dangerous. But Dickinson called this out as the most dangerous strategy of them all. Now, this is discussing the Townshend Acts of 1767. He said, "Some persons may think this act of no consequence because the duties are so small. A fatal error. That," he said, "is the very circumstance most alarming to me. For I am convinced that the authors of this law would never have obtained an act to raise so trifling a sum as it must do, had they not intended by it to establish a precedent for future use." And that is the trap. Establish a precedent. They trick the people into conceding the power because it doesn't seem dangerous. He said, "To console ourselves with the smallness of the duties is to walk deliberately into the snare that is set for us. praising the neatness of the workmanship. Even a single step beyond the limits of the Constitution, no matter how small. And in this case, Dickinson was talking about a tax, so he said even a single penny. Well, that's a precedent for unlimited power in the future. He wrote, in short, if they have a right to levy a tax of 1 penny upon us, they have a right to levy 1,000,000 upon us. For where does their right stop? At any given number of pence, shillings, or pounds? Once you allow them arbitrary power, just because they're only using it in a small way, again, that's the fatal error. That doesn't mean they're just going to stop. They'll never stop. That's the nature of government. He said to attempt to limit their right after granting it to exist at all is as contrary to reason as granting it to exist at all is contrary to justice. And people have fallen for this trick, this trap, all throughout history. And Dickinson cited the Roman historian Sallust, basically taking the position that bad precedents have good beginnings. He said, indeed, nations in general are not apt to think until they feel, and therefore nations in general have lost their liberty. For as violations of the rights of the governed are commonly not only specious, but small at the beginning, and, well, in that situation, they're basically, the people are saying, well, this looks harmless, and therefore the good people, as Cicero warned, they get complacent. And Dickinson said they are small at the beginning, so they spread over the multitude in such a manner as to touch individuals but slightly. Thus, they are disregarded. And citing his favorite biography of Cicero, I think it was published in 1751, Dickinson left us with the harsh reality. The bad guys always put in way more work on this stuff than the good guys. The Republic, says he, is attacked always with greater vigor than it is defended. And waiting to defend liberty and hoping you're going to find good rulers to defend liberty for you at some point in the future. Well, this is a death sentence for liberty. Something that they aren't authorized to do that may be kind of difficult to stop today. Well, it's going to become entrenched, an unstoppable juggernaut once it becomes set in stone in the years to come. And Dickinson said, are these men ignorant that usurpations, which might have been successfully opposed at first, acquire strength by continuance and thus become irresistible? Quoting Montesquieu, he reminded us that the pattern never changes. Complacency leads to tyranny every single time. He wrote, let us take care of our rights, and we therein take care of our prosperity. Slavery, he said, is ever preceded by sleep. So constant vigilance, constant opposition to usurpations of power, that's not paranoia. It's literally a survival strategy. Dickinson said, a free people, therefore, can never be too quick in observing, nor too firm in opposing the beginnings of alteration, either in form or reality, respecting institutions formed for their security. Now, if you apply that to any constitution, state, federal, Constitution for these United States, Articles of Confederation, any constitution, the unwritten British Constitution, which is obviously what Dickinson was discussing in 1767, you can never be too outspoken, too fast to be on top of it, or too firm and too strong in opposing any usurpations of power. That's really the only way you can guarantee that you'll have liberty in the long run. Now, he closed out every single letter with a Latin phrase and an English translation. I'll lean in on the English versions because my Latin is terrible. But closing out letter number 9, Dickinson reminded us that usurpations of power, arbitrary power, government power in general, especially government by precedent, it's like a deadly disease. And the best possible cure is really to try to cut it out right at the start. He said, oppose a disease at its beginning. But even if you're successful of getting it right at the beginning, the work absolutely never ends. He said a perpetual jealousy respecting liberty is absolutely requisite in all free states. Throughout these essays, Dickinson also gave us plenty of insight to understand what all this freedom stuff rests on, what the foundation is. For him, it's property rights and consent, because if you don't have the power to say no, you are not free. In letter 12, he wrote, "Let these truths be indelibly impressed on our minds, that we cannot be happy without being free, that we cannot be free without being secure in our property, that we cannot be secure in our property if without our consent, others may, as by right, take it away." Now, if you strip away all the philosophical takes here, it really gets boiled down to one question to tell you whether or not your freedom is fake or real. He said the single question is whether the parliament can legally take money out of our pockets without our consent. If they can, our boasted liberty is but a sound and nothing else. And that brings us back full circle to that essential question that Dickinson asked. For who are a free people? And it should be obvious at this point of the show that for Dickinson, it wasn't just about having good people wielding power. Because if power can be used in bad ways, you are not free. You're just lucky that they're not using it against you. He said, not those over whom government is reasonably and equitably exercised. That's not real freedom. Again, it's luck. It's a population on its knees begging for scraps, begging for permission. The only real free people are those who live in a system where as soon as government gets out of line, soon as it exercises arbitrary power, soon as it steals power it was never authorized to have, that's an act of usurpation, it gets slapped right back into its box. He said, but those who live under a government so constitutionally checked and controlled that proper provision is made against its being otherwise exercised. John Dickinson knew that getting from the largest government in history to a real land of the free would never be quick or easy. That's why he signed off the first of his letters from a farmer in Pennsylvania with a timeless strategy lesson. The Latin phrase translates to small things grow great by concord. Now, obviously, the Penman of the American Revolution was right. Small things did grow great in the years leading up to and after 1776. This message is so important to our work here at the 10th Amendment Center that you'll find it, at least the Latin phrase, concordia res perve crescunt, if I have that relatively close. You'll find it on all of our membership cards, which I'm not sure if I can get it to focus properly here. Doing my best here if you're watching the video here. That's available to all annual, 5-year, and lifetime members. We also have, if you prefer a monthly option just for online access, we also have monthly memberships that start out at just $2 a month, and absolutely nothing helps us reach and teach more and more people about these essential foundational principles from the founders and the old revolutionaries and the great thinkers they read and learned from. Nothing helps us more than the financial faith and support of our members. You can join us today over at 10thamendmentcenter.com/members. It's all spelled out, 10thamendmentcenter.com/members. I'd be extremely grateful for any consideration you can give to supporting us and joining us as a member today. Thank you so much for your consideration. Now, if you don't want to become a member, but you still want to help us out financially, that's super awesome. You can make a one-time gift or an additional one over at 10thamendmentcenter.com/donate. There's also a bunch of free and easy peasy things you can do, primarily by triggering the algorithms of the mainstream platforms you may watch or listen on, taking actions like leaving comments, subscribe, get notification, sharing links, hitting the like button, or if you're on a video platform like YouTube, watch time percentage is a huge one for the algorithm. A 20-minute video you watch for 20 minutes, that's 100% and pretty good. But if you watch it for 40 minutes, it's 200% and double good. So I get you. I'm sure you get the idea. And I really appreciate any support you can give us, whether it's financial, otherwise, or all the above. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today. I hope this was interesting, but more important than anything, I hope it made you think, and I hope you learned something. Again, I really appreciate you spending some of your time with me today. Hope you have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing you next time here on the Path to Liberty.